The Law Show on CL 650. A comprehensive look at everything you need to know about the law.
Something strange in your neighborhood. Who you gonna call?
Well, yeah, it's kind of our Halloween edition here of the Family Law Show, and we're talking about, families coming apart and getting separated and divorced. And we have with us David Halkett, partner at McQuarrieHunter, and Leah Donaldson, associate at McQuarrieHunter. So, Leah, it's been a month has gone by, and you're still an associate. When are you going to be partner?
Next month, hopefully.
Well, next time.
Next time I'm on the show.
I've always wondered that in law, like how long do you have to practice before the other partners say, come on in, be one of us?
I think it depends on firm to firm and a whole bunch of factors, yeah.
So that's your internal politics. But when we're talking about family law, we want to talk about what it is that you do, because McQuarrieHunter is a full-service law firm in Surrey. You're at Surrey Central, right? Central Surrey?
Yeah, Central City.
Okay, close enough.
That's what they call it.
So that's the SFU campus, right?
It is, yeah. They're on 3rd and 4th floor, and we're on the 15th floor.
15th floor. Now, so with a law firm that has everything from corporate law to you name it, you even have, what's the other part of this that you cover, Leah?
Estate litigation.
Estate litigation, right? So you do a bit of everything. How did you develop this boutique inside there that you have 3 lawyers in the family practice unit?
Well, I think McQuarrieHunter's always had a family law department. When I joined the firm in 2003, there were actually 4 lawyers. I became the 4th that was practicing in family law. It's always been around as a firm who did family law within a bigger context, which is kind of unique for a larger firm, because we're one of the larger firms outside of the outside of downtown Vancouver, I should say. And so it's unique that we have an actual department of lawyers 2 of us who do basically 90 to 95+%, and then Leo does about 60% of family.
So most law firms are boutiques. They're on their own with just a couple of lawyers. Is that how it usually works?
For family law, it does happen a lot, because I think we're such a unique area. We kind of see the world differently, and how our practice area is just different from everyone else's. And so we all kind of congregate amongst each other. And a lot of small firms have grown up from just a couple of family law lawyers getting together.
And Leah, what's the benefit of being inside a bigger full-service law firm? What kind of expertise can you pull from?
It's a great benefit, just because we see more and more people buying properties with the older generation, say, and we have lawyers at McQuarrieHunter that can help you with those other areas. Maybe there's disputes about loans within your family at the same time that sort of touch on the family law issues. So when there's overlap or a different area of law that you might need advice on, you can get that in the same place.
We're seeing that a lot, where parents are buying homes with their children.
Exactly.
And then, of course, the spouse comes with that.
Yep.
So whose name is it in? Was it a loan?
Yep.
Was it a gift? And that's when it gets ugly, is when that all unravels, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And what's good about also just to follow up on what Leah said, with a larger firm, when there's a corporate issue, we have the corporate lawyers the other end who can assist us to explain to us the corporate structures and how we can deal with this.
So if you have a business, and then you're getting paid out of the business, or maybe you have some shares in the business, maybe the spouse is in the business, like, how is that divided? Is that what you're getting at?
Well, to some extent, yeah. And so if you're buying out the other shares, you might need a share transfer agreement. And so you may have to use the North End lawyers from our firm, the corporate side, to deal with those. Or just even explain some of the share structures, because in family law, you have to know a lot about a lot of areas of law, but sometimes you just need someone who has a bit more specialty in it to explain it better to you.
And I guess you have to come to what the value, people who value businesses, right?
Yep.
All those sorts of things. So does your 2 sides, do they cross over, Leah, with estate planning and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, they often do. We do see sometimes with older people getting separated now, they are combining it with estate planning. So when they're going through a separation, they also want to change how they want their estate to flow. And so we see that overlap, as well as litigation sometimes comes into it, where if somebody were to pass away or lose capacity during the separation process, we can also cover that service.
Okay, you have 2 partners who become married, their second marriage, each one had 2 children from their first marriage, and they have a separation and they're getting divorced. But their will was made out when they were still together, and now they have to separate who's getting what after the divorce, right?
Exactly.
So it's a double whammy.
Right. So when that person comes in to see me, I automatically can recognize that they need to see an estate planning lawyer down the hallway. And because we have those lawyers as well, they can go and get advice on that issue and how it works in conjunction with the family law matter.
All right. So family law is part of the law that's never going to...
Never goes away.
Never goes away. Now, you've been doing it for how many years, David?
I was called as lawyer in 92, and I started doing basically only family law in 96, so about 20 years.
So 20 years in family law. Is it picking up or slowing down?
It's steady as year in, year out. It's pretty well the same. Sometimes you have some busier stretches, but it's steady all the time. People get divorced in good times and in bad times economically.
Because you hear those statistics that 50% of all marriages end in divorce. You think that's true, or are people staying together more because of financial situations?
They may be separate in the same home for longer because they can't afford to move out. But in terms of 50%, I think that's because they factor in people who are married 2, 3, 4 times. Some people do get married that number of times. Right, yeah. First marriages, from what I've heard and the studies I've seen, it's about 40 to 45% that end in divorce. So, it's pretty steady. I think that from everything I've read, humans weren't made to be together for 50, 60, 70 years. So in the older times when people died younger, they were married the same amount of times, just weren't getting divorced. Whereas now people just get divorced. And I was at one dinner once. I don't think Leo was at it, but they were talking about the future of marriage, and they said that most people end up with 4 marriages. Your starter marriage in your 20s, then the one that you have your children with, then your soulmate marriage, and then your senior marriage. So
there'll be a lot of work.
There'll be a lot of work for us for a long time.
That sounds expensive. I can't keep up.
Yeah.
Your star budget. Was it what? Leah, you know this one. They marry the first time for love and the second time for money.
That's why I always joke that I'm a boring individual. I'm married to one person, and I have my child with the woman I was married with.
It's interesting. I look at my scope of neighbors and friends, and we only have 1 or 2 people that have been divorced. Most of them are still together, so maybe we're bucking the trend.
Maybe.
Yeah, it's interesting, when you say that, because I know one that he was married once, but he's been married to his second wife, the one he had his son with, for like 15, 20 years now. And most of my son's hockey friends, parents are still together.
Now, Leah, you maybe have heard this as well, that if you've been married once and divorced once, you're more than likely to get divorced the second time because you've been through it.
I have
like there's
heard
a whole
statistic.
There's a stigma, I guess, again, around divorce the first time. But once you've done with it, been there, done that.
Yeah.
It's expensive, though. So you don't want to do it more than once if you don't have to.
So, Leah, why did you want to get into this? I mean, is it all about the people? I mean, we always hear that lawyers don't have a heart, right? But I mean, you guys could probably tell better lawyer jokes than I could. You probably heard them all.
Yeah.
So is it really about
it is about
the people?
The people, and also I found that certain people can do it and certain people can't. As a lawyer, family law is a special area, and so you have to be able to sort of sit through some pretty emotional times for a person, but stay objective and be able to give them good advice during that time. So you can't shy away from people under stress, basically.
Yeah. Right. So you have to charge right in.
You do.
And Leah's right that there's some of the things we hear, like I always think I've heard it all, and then someone comes in and I haven't heard it all. But we had a lawyer years ago. I remember she had to meet with a family law client, and the person started to cry, and this lawyer actually started crying along with the person. So I knew that person was not made for family law. It does take a certain kind of
you
personality.
have to have a bit of a rod up your back. I mean, a stiff upper lip, all that kind of stuff.
You do, but you also have to be able to sympathize. So a lot of people don't have very much patience, and so that you wouldn't make a good family lawyer if you didn't have a lot of patience as well. So you have to be patient and calm and firm, I would say, as a family lawyer.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
And there's a certain amount of hand-holding that goes on with this. It'll be fine. Don't worry. It'll be...
Yeah.
So if you don't have a good bedside manner, it's not.
Yeah, and you have to have a level of trust between you and your client. So family law lawyers, often someone will come, and if you have a good rapport with that person, they have to be able to trust you and know that you're doing everything you can on their behalf.
And that's a unique area of our area of law, in that in other areas of the firm, say I brought a file in and I met with the person, I then passed it on to Leah, who would take over and run a lot of it. In family law, if I want to consider passing a file to Leah or even Sarah, I have to get the client's permission, because they don't have to go through the same story again. They've already trusted you, and they've told.
And they're embarrassed in some sense.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah, they've told you things they've never told anybody else.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I guess that's that balance of being, compassionate yet firm.
Exactly.
Right. And then also have a bit of pit bull in you too, once in a while, right?
Yeah.
To go after what you feel they're entitled to,
and also to make sure that the client knows that if they're taking a position that's unreasonable, to be able to have the experience to tell them that as well.
That's a hard conversation.
It is.
It is.
And
do they respect you more at the end of it? As saying,
I think so.
I'm glad nobody told me this. I needed to hear it from somebody.
Absolutely, and you need to hear it from me before a judge says it. So that's how I basically frame it for people, is that you need to know both sides of everything going into it. And so you have to give your client all of that information and say, I think you're taking an unreasonable position. If you go into court on this matter, you may not be successful. And so that's part of your job, to warn people about all the possible scenarios.
Now, David, there must be another part of it. Well, there must be more to this than you're telling me. Like you've got to draw it out. Like, come on, there's something else here. You need to bring it out. Like, you've got to always prime the pump, right?
Well, yeah, and I've talked to Leah about some of the files and vice versa, and even with my assistant, and I've said them many times, I know there's something more to it that I'm not getting to. And sometimes it just pops out. Like, I had a client once that he was taking an absolutely ridiculous position. It made no sense whatsoever. He was cutting, the proverbial cutting off your nose to spite your face. And then he let it slip as to why he was taking that position. Then it all became crystal clear to me. So I was able to work around that, because they don't always want to tell you everything. Mm-hmm. And when Leah's got a lot more experience now, having been around since 2009 now? Mm-hmm. And so when she was a more junior lawyer, I remember one time, she was given the right advice. She came to me, I said, I've told them that, and they won't listen to me. They just brought me in with a bit of the gray hair, and they actually listened. And so it's also in the delivery.
It's the good cop, bad cop, right?
Yeah, to some extent. And there's also how the delivery, if you seem, as the lawyer, not confident in your position, there's always some people out there who are like sharks and they see it. Once you get, it's all a matter of experience. And now Leah, having been practicing now for 7 years, coming up, I guess, almost on 8 years now, she has the experience. And so she has I've heard her on the phone, because our offices are right next to each other. And it's like, she knows exactly what to say.
Now, do you have to have the off switch? Now, I always assume that women carry these things a little more internally. Guys maybe have a better way of just leaving it at the office. Can you do that? Or are you always involved? Yeah,
I think we have an off switch for the facts and the emotions from the client side. So we can't take on their stress. But I think it's hard to have an off switch as a lawyer about the case. So the things that happen in court, the issues that I'm thinking about, that's difficult. I don't really have an off switch for that. But you have to draw that line in family law, that you can't allow all of that emotion to spill over, because your job is to be objective.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
Yeah. And it's not, even if we really, there's some cases that really tug at the heartstrings. If we get too emotionally involved, and as Leah said, then we may lose the forest for the trees.
All right, when we come back, we're going to get into the money side. I know what he likes to talk about that, but at the end of the day, a divorce is really a lot about the money. We'll find out more about it next when we're talking about family law right here on CL 650.
There's more of the show still ahead. This is The Law Show on CL 650.